Good morning. And I hope you can hear me. Yep, I can't hear myself. Hang on a minute. Good morning. Maybe I won't be too embarrassed here. Yep, I can't hear myself. Hang on a minute. So now that I know I'm broadcasting, I will mute myself. There I go. I'm just talking to myself anyway, so. But if you're out there listening in, good morning, everybody. Good to see you. Hope you're having a good day. I'm living vicariously through others at the moment. I'm looking at Surfer Girl. I guess that's Rainier. I never really thought about her last night. Anyway, Cherie, and she's at Walt Disney World. And she's showing a picture of a raspberry cheesecake. That's just like so unfair. Hey, Tracy Glenn, good morning, sir. Always good to see you in the house. Hope you're having a good day. How's everything up New York way? I got one thing to say about that. I hope it's I hope it's at least colder than it is down here. No offense. I just, I'd hate to think that we're colder than you guys are. But I know that is possible. Ah, it's cold. I thought it might be. It's it has been up to 75 here this week, or 72, something like that. And now it's back down this morning. I think it was down in the 20s, which is not super cold, but 50 degrees drop, that's pretty significant. It's hard to get used to when it's up and down so much. Hope everybody at your house is doing well. Sometimes I wish they hadn't figured out the feels like temperature. I can act like I'm feeling pretty good, not too cold, and I hear that, and I'm suddenly shivering. Have you had to? This is a work related question, or not a work related, I guess, but firefighting experience. Have you ever had to work a fire when it was super cold and everything was freezing up on you? Well, Kenzie's, it's Saturday, so I get that. I don't hate that Billy's working. Well, I mean, I don't hate that she's working. You know what I mean. That's got to be rough. I should invite you on someday and talk about things like that. Being I think you're a volunteer. You may not be, but a firefighter or a paramedic. I don't know. Are you paramedic too, or just a firefighter? I don't mean just a firefighter like that's less than. Oh wow. I'd love that sometimes, Tracy, if you were interested or willing. I have a great deal of respect for people who do either or both of those occupations. I'll never forget. It's one of those. Hey, John. Good morning. Hey, Kenzie. How are you doing? I'm just kind of hanging out here, letting see if anybody shows up this morning. I'm not sure if I'm going to have a guest or not. He wasn't sure if he could be here, so he may have grandchild duties. Hey, Brenda Pruitt, good morning. It may sound funny me saying good morning to her, but she's in one part of the house and I'm in another. Well, Kenzie, do you have big plans today? I've been squirrel hunting already this morning. I'll have to tell you guys about that in a little bit. Not squirrel hunting in the traditional sense, although I used to love squirrel hunt. It was one of my favorite things about fall. John, you talking to me or Tracy? Wow. Let me put that up. A couple of years ago, there was a fire, and it was the coldest of the year. Water doesn't freeze when it's moving. No, but it does. It does once it hits. I guess it does once it hits the house. I mean, or when it gets a chance to settle. But that's what I've always wondered. I mean, I understand the moving water thing because I've had to deal with frozen pipes and that sort of stuff before. But I also wondered. I've seen pictures. You see pictures of spray covered structures that are just frozen solid. Got to meet up with someone, talk about old theater stuff. Oh, well, that's cool. I used to, long time ago, I used to do lighting for a theater. I didn't design the lighting system, the stage or anything, but I helped put them up and then run them, flick them on and off at the right times and all that kind of stuff. Zoom the spot for a little hometown theater company in Johnson City, Tennessee. That was one of the many things I did while I was in high school. I enjoyed it. Saw several really good plays. I thought is it a repertoire? The little theater group there was really good. Oh, wow, Tracy. I'd like to see that sometimes. That's homework. I just saw that part, Kenzie. That's the bane of going back to school. Excuse me. Some of it's fun, but homework has a sense of drudgery just attached to the word. Now back to John's question. John, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to ignore you once I saw the me. It was we fared okay. We didn't lose any trees, I don't think. We've got a few trees that could come down. I mean, they're not necessarily we have a few pine trees left in our yard that haven't been cut or fallen in the back lot. Well, we have one up front. And sometimes when we get wind like that, one might fall down in the edge of the woods here. But the this time we had nothing. A lot of sticks, and it moved the leaves around. So if you had any leaves on your yard, they're down in somebody else's yard now, or somebody else's are in yours. And it's but it was it was blowing trash cans down the street here, but we didn't right here in our area. We didn't have any really bad storms, and I don't know. There was a tornado. I think there was something down towards Nashville, but I can't remember if anybody got hurt. We have a shingle from somebody else's house. Yeah, we hope it's from somebody else's house. We probably need to go out and make sure it's not off of ours, but I don't think it is. Oh my. Well, who are you going to conduct, Lindsay? And I saw something else from Tracy. All volunteer. Well, a lot of them here, most of them around here are too. At least if you get outside the city areas or some of the towns. But where I grew up, it was all volunteer fire and rescue, as far as I know. I don't. It may have changed today, but it wasn't back then. And you guys cover the whole Tracy, do you guys cover the whole county, or are there townships or some areas that have their own groups or firefighters that you don't do? Or that may sound like a dumb question. I'm probably not asking it right. Wrong color. What? Oh yes, I agree with that, Tracy. That's people do not. I don't think people who do not volunteer or who don't volunteer more than once. I've had those. Don't understand how much money is saved by local, city, county, state, and federal government by volunteer workers. It's tremendous. I had a really good group of volunteer workers, core group, and then we brought they brought people in. And if I hadn't have had them, I would never have been able to do a lot of my job, or at least not as well as I think we did it, because um, volunteers really make the difference. And in your case, save lives and homes, and or fires from spreading. I mean, it's a difference from the ones I had where we were doing different kind of work, but volunteers nonetheless. Wow, that's okay. That's a lot of departments. I don't know. That's a big state, so maybe your counties are. Of course, I don't know how many there are here. We could have that many here for all I know. Okay, Brenda, you got to tell me what was the wrong color. Oh, wrong color shingle. I got you. Never mind. Duh. I figured it out. Well, they'll figure out they're missing one. But yeah, it blew like crazy here, John. I mean, I sat here one day and watched the trees really bending, and I don't know what it got up to, but we had some pretty stout winds. We're sort of below the crest of the hill if it's coming, from due straight out from behind me here, um, which is almost due west, or yeah, close to west, due west. Anyway, when it's coming out from that way, we probably get blocked just a little bit, or a little bit on the lee, but we still get enough up rolling over the hill. But we're also on the crest of the hill this way too, or on the edge of where it starts to drop off on our north side, and it's I think it brings in some of the wind to our place, um, but we survived. I didn't hear about a lot of down lines or anything like that. So other people had it worse. We've been lucky in that regard this year. I think there are a couple of town departments, one municipal, and a couple of protection. What is considered and if I'm asking too many questions, Tracy, please forgive me. We could save that, I guess. Maybe I will. Maybe we'll save that to someday when you want to come on, or you feel like coming on. We can talk about firefighting. We have, and you probably do too. Our state forestry department also fights fires. They don't. I'm not going to say they wouldn't or haven't, but they don't generally fight, structure fires or house fires, unless it's something they're trying to protect from a wildfire. But I've worked with those guys some. They've got a pretty good team of guys that can go out and with bulldozers and equipment stationed, um, units to plow fire lines and that kind of stuff, which is again different. I'm not saying you guys may do that too up there, and local fire departments get involved in wildfires here if we have any, but the state does have crews stationed all around different counties for that. I don't know if there's one in each county or if county share those guys, but they're state employees. They're not volunteers. I'll have to put together some slides someday, and with my Kelly. Good morning, Pirate Red or Red Pirate. How are you this morning? Oh, black hearts. I don't know if that's that. Oh, that now they're black over here, but they're not over here. That's interesting. Learn something new every day. Everything I know that was moved, that has moved to Tennessee, and volunteers down there. In fact, the county volunteers bought my department so fire truck. How you don't know what county that is, do you, Tracy? How are you, Miss Kelly, and the family? She's probably going to tell us it's not cold where she's at. I've noticed that Kelly might move around a little bit, but she tends to stay in the southern part of the country, or warmer parts. Maybe I should put it that way. Florida, Arizona, that sort of thing. Okay, Tracy. I'm not going anywhere. Hey, what I am going to do. Pause while I, not really pause, but Kelly Smart. Oh, kept that Kelly. I would agree, John, in some ways, at least until summertime really hits, and then I have to question that. But that's just me. Hang on. But that's just me. I'm not sure only 75 in Phoenix. Well, that's pretty good, though. That's comfortable. I think it's supposed to stay cool here in the 30s, and then it's supposed to start raining, warm up enough to rain and rain all week, the rest of the week. I think starting about Monday or Tuesday. So next week's probably going to be pretty glum. Seems like I have a couple of appointments next week. I better check my calendar. Or my wife, if she's still on here. Madisonville. Actually, I'm not. We got a couple of different Madison. Well, we got a Madisonville. I won't say that's down near Nashville, but maybe that's the one that's up here. That sounds ignorant on my part, but sometimes town namers aren't that original. They just borrow it from somebody else. That's interesting. I know that happens down here at least. People buy. I knew a guy that worked with another local fire department, and they had gone to someplace, a different state, and bought a truck, and they were quite thrilled with it because it was much better than anything they had. We have a lot of counties here that aren't that well funded, so they do well to have the equipment they do have. And some of it tends to be surplus from somewhere else. You talked about protection. I'm going to save that. Not going to talk about that. Okay, I know where he's at then. Yeah, that's not too far from here. I used to go down the mountain. I thought that's where you meant, and that's it's kind of between here and Chattanooga in a way. I mean, it's not a direct line, but well, here in the. the mountains that cross into North Carolina. I go to Madisonville and head down into the mountains from there to go to the Cherahela Parkway and that kind of stuff if I'm riding in that part of the country, or down by Tellico where the tail of the dragon is. Some of you may have heard me talk about that. That's the super twisty road that people come from all over the world to ride their motorcycles and act fool. And where semi trucks get trapped between curves because they can't make turns like that and end up on that road, and just causes all kinds of headaches. Fire protection. Okay, let me put that up and read it. Fire Protection District is an independent fire district that contracts probably with the towns in the protection district. It may cover one or two or more towns. Okay, I think I understand that. So they're sharing the resources and to cover more ground, and maybe when one area can't, where possibly one area couldn't afford it, they're able to work together, and all of them can have maybe better services than they had. If that makes sense. Do you have what do they call here? That we have something here. I may have to look this up. Called a fire. We have communities around here, like around the lake and in the edge of the mountains and things, that have their Firewise. I think they call it a Firewise program, where members of the homeowners association, or the people in the community, get together and do things to help prevent fires, like possibly clear underbrush and fuel. What would you have to do to share a link, Tracy? Would I have to make you I'd have to make you a mod, right? I can do that. See if you can do it now, Tracy. See, mods do show up there. And if you can't, if you're not, hey, Rhonda, good morning. Glad to see you. Got several guests today. I'm proud. There you are. Go ahead, Tracy. I don't have but a couple of mods anyway. So if you've got a link for something like that, by all means, share it. I think that would be fascinating. And I will even look it up. I have to move my microphone. Oh, wow. Oh, I know about, in Inglewood too. Cool. Yeah, I certainly do know where that is. If I ever drive by, I'll pull in if there's anybody at the firehouse, I'll stop and say, hey, do you know Tracy Glenn? And that will surprise somebody. Will be really surprised. Oh, okay. So which one in the picture, Tracy? Which one is your old engine? Of course, I don't know one from another, but I see one's got a higher roof line, and it's got a different kind of fire. Has that got like a water cannon on it? One of them. Now I'll shut up and let you. That's McMinn County. I believe they're in McMinn County. Okay. So how many? I'm not going to do all that. I'm going to shut up, Tracy. I'm going to shut up till I get a chance to have you online, and then maybe we can talk about more detail. I would love to pick your brain and share the information. I was going to post some pictures on Teddy's website. We bought some new fire extinguishers to put in the house, and I'm ashamed to admit it had been too long since we had any around. Well, that's what I meant. I was thinking about the guy you knew. Okay, I'm gonna confess. I hit a squirrel this morning with my blowgun and a paintball, but I don't know if the paintball ruptured or not. I think I've got a problem. The squirrels are too much like me and Teddy. They're a little bit, let's say, fluffy. So they may just bounce off of them. But I hit one in the hip and one near the head, and I don't know if either one of them actually marked yet. They may have, and they may not have come back to the feeder. I'm trying to, being a biologist, by training, I'm trying to do a capture. Hey, I believe I've got company. Stand by 1 minute, Tracy. Uncas.
Good morning.
Good morning, brother. How are you?
Well, I've been having technical difficulties. I broke the earpiece off my glasses, and I've been working on that for a little while.
Oh no, that's terrible.
So there you go.
There you go. Now you have it. All right, Tracy. Thanks for coming in, buddy. And let's talk about coming on and talking about firefighters. I'd like to do that. There's John said hi to Mark. Tracy Glenn does on the side. He does volunteer fire work, and we were just talking about local firefighters.
Well, turn me off and put Tracy on.
No, he's gonna come. He can't today. He's gonna come back one day and come in and talk about it. I think if he can. This is his day off. He's probably busy. He's still working. I mean, as in not retired.
Poor devil.
Like some people.
Good morning, John. And everybody.
Are you frozen in this morning?
No, I think it's supposed to be 40 degrees here today.
Ooh-wee.
We got a little snow the other day, and just a little bit, and it's just about gone. And the red-winged blackbirds have come back, and
woohoo, that's good.
It's getting to be springtime.
That's such a relative term. It is here too, though. Brenda and I were out looking when we came back from the doctor. When I came back from the doctor or something the other day, or maybe we just went to the store. But flowers are blooming, and daffodils and things are popped up, and they're already blooming. I hope oaks and things don't bloom early, because if they do,
they're going to get fooled.
They do. It's going to be a bad year for deer and critters, because
there'll be no acorns.
There'll be no acorns. That's right.
And for you other people not from that part of the world, that's an acorn.
Or an oak seed, as I like to call them. From whence mighty acorn, from whence mighty oak trees grow, or something like that. I know there's a poem or a story about that.
Yeah, it's we don't have no flowers blooming.
Yeah, well,
that was like a triple negative or something there, but there aren't any flowers blooming in Wyoming, so
no, and you probably won't have any until mid-July or so when it warms up. I'm kidding, but
Some years.
Yeah, some years. How's the rest of the family today?
Everybody's good that I know of, but I haven't gotten the morning debrief. So,
Oh, okay. And Boudreaux Campbell survived the night.
he's golden. He's running around here acting a fool already. Actually, he's out. I just saw him a minute ago. He like out the door. He's out in the horse pasture with the real border collie, and they're out there running, and he keeps up pretty good, even though his legs are little.
For anybody who doesn't know about Boudreaux Campbell, he's Mark and Shauna's new puppy, and he's a part dachshund, so he does have some vertical.
Challenge.
He's vertically challenged, and his legs are short. Horizontally, he may not be as challenged, but vertically, he is. He's trying to grow up with a border collie and a Vizsla, and he's he thinks he's one of them, but he's not quite. His legs don't move. Well, they might move as fast, but they don't cover as much ground.
But he's getting to where he can keep up with them pretty darn good. They were out all day yesterday playing, and he was doing a pretty good job. So
he's got border collie in him, so I still think they may turn him into, or Hank may turn him into a cattle dog yet. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe Hank will relinquish his chicken duties, and he'll go to herding livestock, and he'll just or other livestock, and he'll just let Boudreaux guard the chicken.
Yeah. I still think that's how they built corgis.
Well, you might not be too far off.
Because he's about, he's going to be bigger than a dachshund, and he's
he already looks bigger to me.
He's like his coat's not like a corgi, but he's sure built like one. So,
well, they were herd dogs too.
Yeah,
and who knows? That could have been
an accidental breeding. They had a badger dog and a cow dog get together.
It might have been a collie or something. They don't have. I mean, they're colored like some of them are colored like collies, but they don't have that pointy nose, of course. But yeah, you never know. It could have been a badger dog and a herd dog. That's it's another Romeo and Juliet story on four legs.
I can't imagine they were any better at keeping their dogs apart than we are.
No, I doubt
it. Anyway,
I'm sure somebody got loose from time to time. Oh, me.
How come I can't see? I guess I can. I don't know. Oh, I'm just looking at. I have trouble with the comments sometimes.
Oh, did you find them?
Yeah, I got them.
Okay. We're going to be a little short-handed today. We've got some new folks in, though, Mark. We have, if she's still with us, we had Tracy Glenn. He's from Kinsey Day's dad. That's a long story there, history. Of course, John's here. The Mickey Bunch, Kelly from the Mickey Bunch was here. She's in Arizona. She said it was going to be 75 near Phoenix today. I was trying to think who else. John's here. Somebody else was in here a minute ago, I thought. Oh yeah, Rhonda's here from DWG Travels or Adventures. I guess that's about it for now. And Tracy was he might be, you never know. His daughter Kenzie was here too a little while ago, and she's Kinsey Day's, and probably should say Tracy Glenn's daughter or something. I don't know.
She's the actual Kinsey Days.
Yeah. Tracy had a problem when he first started streaming. He was people weren't sure if he was male or female. and he used to just go by Tracy, and a lot of people took him for the feminine gender, and so he put the Glenn on there, thinking that would fix it. And some people still struggle, I guess. So he finally added the Kinsey Day's dad. Now I may not have that 100% right, but that's pretty close. And so that's kind of led to some other things. I don't. Let me see what maybe Kinsey just says Kinsey Days, but Kinsey Day's mom is Billy, and Billy goes by Billy, Kinsey Day's mom. And Kinsey has a boyfriend named Matt, and so Matt decided, well, he'll just get on here, and he goes by Kinsey Day's boyfriend. Matt, Kinsey Day's boyfriend. So there's just, it's like the Kinsey Day's family. She's in charge. So she had to get up and do homework. She's a college student. She's working on some musical degrees, and she had to do some composing, she said, and write some music and get a video of her conducting. I'm not sure who she's conducting. I didn't even know she worked on a train. Hey, Francisco, good morning.
Francisco. I don't have one of them. That's funny to say.
Well,
You do.
Francisco, as Tracy Glenn says, that sure is fun to say. I don't know what that sounds like on the other end.
But it is as bright and shiny and nice and toasty warm here this morning as you can get springtime in Wyoming. So
for February in Wyoming, that's
yeah, it's not even springtime yet officially. I guess.
Yeah, and it may not last either. Well, you got another.
It's not gonna. It's supposed to be back down in the like teens or 20s on Monday. So
yeah, it's supposed to start to. I'm not sure what the temp. It's 30s. About. I don't know what the cold was this morning. It might have got down to the 20s here last night, but it was pretty chilly. My wife stepped outside to do something, and came back in and said it was cold as pretty cold.
As cold as pretty cold. You started to say something entirely different.
I did, but I caught myself.
I forgive you.
But I caught myself.
Well, it's such a nice day here. If I can get the grandbabies out, we're gonna ride some ponies today. But
oh, that'll be good. Are they already there?
But they've got a grandma's going in with them. Nani's going in to do a craft fair with them this morning, and then they got some kind of a craft deal going on in town, and then if we can get them out here before nap times and all that stuff, and the wind's not blowing too bad, we'll maybe saddle a pony.
So, and by wind not blowing too bad, that's any time when you don't have to chain them to the ground or the horse.
Right. Well, and the horses get goosey when it's too windy.
Oh, yeah, I know. I was kidding about that. Well, there used to be the old story used to be if you flew airplanes, you have a windsock at the airport. Look out and tell which way the wind's blowing. And they used to say if you lived out west, or first time I ever heard this story, it was about Oklahoma, and the wind blows there all the time too. And they used to say they use a logging chain, and depending on how many links are hanging down, whether you go flying or not.
Exactly.
Come here, buddy. Oh, there he is. Hey, Boudreaux. Yeah,
he smells like he's been running in the horse pasture.
Yeah, I bet he does.
He smells exactly like he's been maybe rolling in the horse pasture. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, they're prone to do that from time to time.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to talk. I don't have a pic. I don't know if I've got. Let me see if I've got a good picture here.
I didn't even know what your topic was today, and I just come
on. Last week. Well, what'd you say?
You sent me a deal, so
I'll send you a deal. Send you a deal anytime. But Um, the but I did have something I wanted to talk about. Let me see if I have a picture. I heard a song this morning. I can't get it out of my head. But I also can't whistle very much right now. My whistler's not working since I've lost my teeth. Should have.
Which I shouldn't be laughing, but you know, we are hillbillies, so.
Well, that's true. I could just feel proud about it. It's my head.
They credit us with inventing the toothbrush. my coworkers, they just couldn't hardly stand not telling that joke every day.
I bet. I was going to talk a little bit about this.
Oh, there's the coin.
Yeah, I had it on my thumbnail last week for the show, and I asked if anybody knew what it was. I wish I should have pulled this out while Tracy was here. He's a big Marvel Comics fan, and I don't think I can make that any more bigger. I don't think. Maybe I can. Oh, there it goes. And I forgot to talk about it. I just got so wrapped up in my own stupor or whatever that I just forgot to talk about it. But this is I know a lot of you, or most of you, probably know what I know. John does, and Francisco probably does. But not a travel coin, a challenge coin. And the first place I ever heard of a challenge coin was the military. And this is similar. I mean, I don't think you could say it holds the same weight as the military one does, but and maybe that's a different thing. But anyway, they've become more popular and for different reasons. A lot of companies have them. We had some they came out with a series at work before I left. I think I got one for the Natural Resources Department somewhere. And yeah, John, I bet you do. Do they pay off very often? But I found these this past year, and I kept looking at them. And I kept reading up on them. And I found they're kind of fascinating. And so I bought a couple of these this year, and I sent one to Mark for Christmas. Well, sort of. I mean, I sent it to him, and I actually gave one of these to my buddy Philip, and my wife got one somehow, and I think it's kind of, oh, look what you got for somebody. I'm going to keep that kind of a deal. And I was going to read a little bit about the coin, but that's Odin. So you Marvel fans would know Odin as Thor and Loki's father. And in this case, if you look down, you'll notice that his horse has more than 4 legs. Oh, thank you, Nicole. And welcome in. That horse is
Sleipnir.
Yeah. And this is supposed to be like a coin for travelers. I started to say a good luck coin. I don't know if they actually say that, but it's sort of a guardian thing. I mean, that was the story. And because Odin, I guess, traveled around on his 8-legged horse, and then if you really look closely at the coin, you'll see there's some other creatures in there that are with him, and they follow him around, and they go with him. Like if you look on the top of his helmet, you might see what looks like a bird, and that's a raven. And the legend, story, mythology is that, I shouldn't say mythology. I wasn't there. He might have been around. He may have had an 8-legged horse. Is that he had 2 ravens that were with Odin all the time, and one rode with him, and the other one would circle and fly overhead to look out for, trouble or, what was going on around him to keep him informed. And he also had a pair of wolves that ran with him. And again, if I can't figure out why I can't open that. I don't remember what I did with it. And that ain't it. Oh, here it is. All right, now I'm going to open this, and then I'm going to probably have to move it like that. Hang on a minute. Pull that over here so I can read about it. And this is the little story they put together. Mark, you may have to say these words. I don't know if I can, but basically it says the Viking travel coin was designed with the traveler or wanderer in mind. Whether your journey is to the corner store, to another country, or to achieve a personal goal, a Viking travel coin in hand or pocket will provide comfort along the way. So it's sort of like a good blankie. On one side of the coin, you will find Odin, the Norse god of war and of the dead. Odin gives those in battle strength against their enemies. He is called Allfather and the Wanderer. Odin's primary goal is to protect Midgard, the only realm visible to humans. I believe that Midgard is mentioned in some of the Marvel movies. I think seems like or stories. Seems like Thor goes back to Midgard when he wants to, see his pop or talk about Loki, or find out what Loki's up to. And but anyway, I just thought it was pretty fascinating. I was going to try to find. It says flying above Odin is one of his raven familiars, and I would call that Hugin or Hugin. I'm not sure which represents Odin's thoughts. The other raven, Munyon, is hiding on the back of the coin. The other side, you can't see it, represents Odin's memory. Given the gift of speech by their master, they fly over Midgard each day to report on all they see. So they were kind of his spies. I think that's the kind of tradition or legend that sort of carried over with other peoples and other lands. Actually, the Native Americans thought ravens and crows sort of did things like that. If they weren't being tricksters, weren't they tricksters too, Mark, at some point? Or were they was it always like coyotes that were tricksters?
Coyotes are tricksters, for sure.
But they also had a theory that they also had an idea that when the world ended, the last two creatures alive would be a coyote and a crow, or a coyote and a raven. And I think they might be right. Oh, you sent a couple of okay, John. I'll pull those up in a minute. He sent me a couple of his coins. I've got one laying here somewhere I bought from my dad. I'm gonna put it. And before anybody says I thought you'd already done that, I'm still waiting on something to put in it. But I've got a coin that I'm going to put in a paperweight for him for my desk. I'm going to put two of the casings from the salute they fired over his casket, and then put this. I've got an army, just kind of a generic army challenge coin with here's John's stuff. With oh, John, that's cool. I'm going to save that, buddy, if you don't mind, and maybe show it here in a minute.
Okay.
I'm trying to get there. Those are neat, John. Uh-oh, I heard that.
Yeah, Boudreaux's getting taught how to be the young dog.
Hey, Kay, good morning, Miss Atwood. How are you? We were just talking a little bit about Odin and his companions. Oh, my. That's the second saddest thing in the world right there. Empty coffee cup.
Excuse me.
The first might be an empty whiskey glass, but that's another story. But I knew Mark liked.
Well, isn't there one of his sons is on this side of the coin, as I recall. I
it.
see down at the bottom. It's a snake.
The snake, yeah.
Yeah, I can't because he had Loki and he had this guy, whoever I can't remember
Yeah,
his
and I
name.
can't remember his name. Hang on a minute and I'll tell you, I think.
He's the one he circled Midgard.
It's
If he ever like
up there.
lost hold of his tail, he would Ragnarok would start, which I take was bad.
Yeah, it's supposed to, I mean, I think that was bad. Did they look closely among the runes and find? No, that's a wolf. He's got two wolf companions also. If you flip it over, you'll see Vegas was Steer, a Nordic wayfinder. That's a better find the way through the weather. It's fine. I don't. Where is the snake? Oh, it's Jorgman.
It's down there in the horse's legs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the middle. Is the middle child of Loki, and was thrown into the great ocean that surrounds Midgard at a young age by Odin. While in the ocean, is it Jormungandr? Jormungandr? I may not be pronouncing it right, but anyway, he's if he's the one, if he releases, he's got. If you flip the coin over, and I'll do that just in a second. In fact, I'll do that right now. You can see. Let me see if I can make it open. Yeah, there we go. There. If you look around the outside of the coin and look up at the top, up in here, which you probably can't see because there's a black thing hiding it. But you look real close, you can see the serpent's mouth, and he's got his tail in his mouth. In this case, and if he releases his tail, that's the world's supposed to, or whatever, wherever it's supposed to go into Ragnarok. And I'm sure if Tracy was here, he could tell me a lot better because he knows more about that part. I think he knows more about that part of the legend than I do. He may not know about everything that's on this coin, but he says he's always threatening to unleash hell on our lives, but with his coin in hand, we can prevail. So hang on to that coin, brother. But the ruins mean things. Okay, let me stop that screen. I watched a very interesting show last night. Well, let me catch up over here with chat. Let's see what case. There's a Native American legend about the Ravener. Yeah, that could be. I'm not sure which ones had that legend, but I'll believe that. There are a lot of legends about them. Hey, you want to get on? Miss K isn't here, but you want to show up? Come here while you're awake and in a good mood. Say hi to Mark. Say hi to Mark, Miss K, John, Francisco. He's hurt. I was going to mention, I don't know who knew that's in here, but the president of Teddy's fan club, otherwise known as Karki or Carol, couldn't be here today because she had a wedding to go to. I didn't realize it, but her daughter's getting married today. And I don't know if I missed that last time or if she mentioned that and I didn't see it. So I'm not sure which. So anyway, I was going to tell you a story. Brenda had copied saying you may have seen this, so you can speak up and add to it. if you wish. Well, you can anyway, but somebody Kay said you was beautiful. Yeah, he said he knows. He's kind of like Han Solo and Leia when she says I love you, and he says I know. So Teddy, he's like, I know. The anyway, it was David Attenborough narrated it, which he does lots of good stuff. But it was called I don't know if Brenda's still in here. She might have fallen asleep. I got her up early, so she may not be in. But it was about it was about mammoths found in England and along the southern area of England where these particular ones were found. And at the time they were found, it was sort of a mystery for England, at least. They hadn't found that many before. I think they'd found some, but what was really unique about these was they found them in a kind of a pile. And it was, I think now they figured out there were 4 or 5 of them, maybe 5, and one of them might have been a juvenile. And they're very intact. They like, fell in the heat and got covered up that way and preserved a great deal of the skeleton. Maybe some of the most complete ones, at least, they've ever found over there. So they've been working on there, and I don't know how exactly when this was found. It could have been dated. I didn't look to see when it was filmed, but it's pretty fascinating though, because they also found stone tools there, which was the first time they had ever found Neanderthal. Notice I didn't say Neanderthal artifacts at what they do believe is a kill site, basically. Now, at first, it was thought that I got something here about the flint tool. I'm going to ask you in a minute. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. When they first found it, they just assumed that it was a natural something, like a flood had washed them down, and they collected bones they collected in this one spot or something like that, because it was near what they believe was the prehistoric route of the Thames River. The Thames comes out in a different place now, of course, and it's changed courses, but it's within a couple of miles, I think, or a couple of kilometers of where it is now. But I'm sure they can follow back geography and figure that one out. But so they thought maybe it was a flood event or something that trapped these mastodons in the mud at one of the and that. Well, they also, I know what it was. The other unusual thing about it was these weren't woolly mammoths; these were what they call steppe mammoths. So not as big as the woolies, and not as quite as hairy as the woolly. And not very often. They're not often found together. A little bit different time periods, but the woolies kind of, as the ice age crept in more, or through those periods, the steppes, I think, eventually either died out, inbreeding took over, and their species was enveloped, or they moved south and then eventually didn't make it, or what further south and they didn't make it. But anyway, eventually became woolies. But these were steppe mammoths in an area where they had not found. I don't think they'd found other steppe mammoths, but and they were looking. I said they were smaller, not as hairy. But anyway, so that was something they were trying to figure out too. And of course, scientists believe that the islands that we now think of England in that area were still attached to the continent by a land bridge, which probably disappeared in one of the next ice ages. And they're talking about 400 million years back here, or 400,000 years ago. Excuse me, not million. But they had a guy come on there, Mark, and I thought, man, I wish Mark could see this. And you may know all about it, but he was a flint knapper.
Was it Dr. James Dillahay?
I'm not sure.
Because or it could have been Bruce Bradford, who's an American, who's like the Clovis man expert, or Clovis
Well,
people.
they were talking about something called
A Levallois.
yes.
Yeah. See?
So you knew about that.
Yeah. So you prepare a core, hard to describe. Looks kind of like a big crystal, like
Of
how
course,
like how
flint.
crystal. You take a big chunk of flint and you're breaking pieces off of it strategically to make it look like an elongate crystal, and then you prepare a platform and strike a flake off of that with that kind of the ridge running down the middle of the blade, and it makes an instant spear point. They're pretty crudely built, but well, the technique's not crude. The compared to like a bifacially built stone tool of later years, they look crude, but the technique was not crude. I don't know if that,
Very, very sharp.
I don't know if any of that makes any sense or not,
Oh, it
unless
does. Most definitely.
unless you break stone. But
Yeah,
yeah,
well, true. But you could have quoted what they said in the book last night. That's how he described. Have you seen this movie before?
no,
It
no,
was
but I'm going to have to. You said Attenborough did it.
Attenborough narrate. He was in it. Now, I don't know if he was responsible for having it filmed. I mean, he's been involved in that kind of thing. It was. I'll have to look it up. I think we saved it online. I think we saved it. I'll get the title for you here in a little bit. But it was Brenda. Brenda, are you still up there awake? Tell Mark the name of that show we watched last night. What? Of course, you know this, and I knew this before, but most people don't realize how sharp a good edge of flint or obsidian, especially, can be.
Right.
And these things were like razors. I mean, they broke off. And I don't know if you probably know this already, but they worked their stone, their core into and their platform, and then when they make that final hit that drops the chip out, it's on the bottom side.
Right.
Comes off like in their hand. In this case, he was holding a larger piece of flint in his hand and worked it down. And
which is where when you're flint knapping, it always comes off on the underside.
Okay.
You build and I had, forever, like watching DC Waldorf make arrowheads at Friendship and things. I never really, it took me forever to understand what a platform was. And it's just an angle that you kind of artificially build on the stone by flaking. And then you flip it over and you kind of grind that off a bit and make it a little smooth, and then whack it, and it'll send a big flake off on the underside. And
right.
And those Neanderthals, and I refuse to call them talls either, just because that's not how we grew up. But we
both don't deal with change well.
They were making pretty sophisticated stone tools, and now, I mean, they just consider them a subspecies of Homo sapiens now, anyway. And if you got any European in you, if you're a European, you got
most of it
might have 2 to 6% Neanderthal, and probably do. If you got any redhead,
a little bit.
If there are any redheaded people in your family, you definitely have Neanderthal. There's several genetic traits that came from them specifically, and that's one of them.
So Ginger was Neanderthal.
Yeah, Ginger was a Neanderthal.
You reckon they had see-through skin?
I doubt it, but they might have. My grandson, he's clear, and we've talked about that. I think we've talked about that.
Yeah, we probably have. I just think it's the funniest damn.
My cousin Brad, he's pretty see through. So yeah,
Anyway, but it was in case you don't know, the term napping is the process by which you
it's with the K, napping with the K.
KNAPPING, I guess. But it's you take a tool, which last night he had bone and antler, and it's actually some different kinds of stone. Like I don't know what he had over there, granite or limestone or something, rounded stones, and he was using that a little bit. But you hold the flint and you break the edge off and chip it, and as it chips, flint will form an edge. And Mark picked that up as a young lad and has made quite a few arrowheads over the years. And some people have taken primitive bow hunting to the extent of they're using stone heads again. They weren't very sharp. They weren't, huh?
That's my goal.
Is it?
Oh, they're very sharp when you make them right.
They're a little bit more fragile in some cases.
They're like scary sharp when you make them right.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they showed this axe this guy had. The couple that found the mastodons originally weren't. I don't think they were professional anthropologists or. What would you chase? What do you call dinosaur hunters, or in this case, mammal hunters?
Paleontologists.
Yeah, paleontologists. But they did it. That's how they met. And then they hung around together and did this for a while, and then they got married. But they found in fact, seems like there was something really unique about the way he proposed or her ring. Anyway, one of the things they found was this big, what's for lack of a better term, a stone axe. But it was probably a handheld thing, they think.
Yeah, so they had big hand axes,
right?
And more modern humans used them as well,
right? And they showed how sharp they were. I mean, it looked like a big old dull rock.
Yeah,
but they took a chunk of meat and laid it out there on a board, and they could just slice it off in chunks. I mean, it would cut very easily.
Yeah,
with this stone tool, and that was a tool that I believe that was the one they found, and that was a tool, as far as I know, had not been sharpened in centuries. If you want to look at it that way,
right? So
it was still very sharp and sliced quite well. Actually, it was pretty neat. But I was glad they did, and they also showed them someone as a demonstration or a reenactment of early man doing this, but they actually showed them skinning with it and pulling the hide back and using that stone to get in there, or that axe getting in there to cut the skin away and peel it. And then they showed some really cool little scrapers, Mark, that they found for preparing the hides.
Right.
If you don't know, if you skin an animal to prepare the hide, you have to scrape the fat off the hide to get it to take the tanning solution. Most I don't know about Neanderthals. People, Native Americans use use brains. There's a saying goes that every animal's got just enough brains to tan their own hide, and you can make a slurry basically out of brain material when you harvest it. If you killed a buffalo, you could take his brain out if you weren't a brain eater, I guess, but you can make a solution out of it or grind it up and make a soup out of it and rub that all over the hide once you remove all the fat and roll it up and leave it, and it will tan itself. You'll have tan leather. And of course,
after you do a bunch of elbow grease.
A bunch of what?
A lot of elbow grease.
Yeah. Well,
it takes brains, not from the tanner, just from the animal. Yeah. And which is an emulsified oil, kind of like neat's foot oil or eggs. eggs are the same.
Yeah,
Kind of
I guess eggs you told
chicken.
me you can use eggs, I think.
Yep. Yeah. I've used chicken eggs on a couple of deer hides. It works well. But I mean, it's it takes that, and then you had to prepare the hide correctly and get all the glues out of the hide first, and then you can tan it or preserve it. But it takes a lot of elbow grease. That's the main ingredient.
And that's the people used to talk about native women having their back teeth were ground down because they chewed hides to help loosen them up and do that. Because what you end up with, regardless of how you do it, I guess, is a pretty stiff hide that's not usable. But if you prepare a brain tanned hide correctly and you do all that work that he's talking about, and then you hang it up in the teepee to let it get smoked and preserved by the smoke. It's kind of like smoking the meat in some ways. And then you get this beautiful, soft, luxurious feeling leather that's just quite amazing. And I know Mark has a piece of brain tan leather there somewhere.
I do. Several pieces, but
Well,
my brother gave me another piece.
that's the one I was talking about. And I used to just stick my head down in that bag and go, I loved that smell. Brenda didn't like it, but I did. I loved it. But it's very soft. I mean, I mean, I guess I could finish it in different ways to make different things, but if they were going to make clothing out of it, and a lot of times it was done that way to, you know, well, they were just like us. They wanted something a little bit more comfortable. You wouldn't want to wear a stiff deer hide if you didn't have to.
No. Well, and it's amazing to me that people all across the world, I mean, all the way around the planet, prepared hides like that with brains.
Yeah, we were talking
I
about that.
mean, Europeans did it. Everybody says the Native Americans did it, but all people did it at one time, as did all people use stone tools at one time.
Yeah, that's what I was talking to Brenda about last night. That these are traits that made it all the way around the world in a time when we don't think about people moving around the world. It took centuries probably to get. What are you up to? I had to see what my partner here was getting into. I heard him digging in something. He was deciding to pull some stuff out of a box for some reason, and he thought he needed to get out. After I probably picked it up and put it in there, you turd.
Maybe there's a gecko in that box.
Well, that'd be funny.
Or some kind of varmint.
Yeah, was there a varmint in that box, or was there a varmint in there? Huh? Well, he's through checking now, so it didn't hold his interest too long. He was playing soccer. He's been playing soccer at night when the lights go out, and what that means to hear is he's got these aluminum balls that Brenda gives him. He bats them up and down the hall. Man, he has a big time.
And sounds like a herd of woolly mammoths, or even steppe mammoths.
Even steppe mammoths. When I was down here, when I'm downstairs and he's running across this floor up there, it literally sounds like a herd of woolly mammoths, which they were quite a bit larger. One of the things they showed in this discovery last night was examples of teeth that they found, molars, which is, I don't know, you probably have seen them done this way. I've seen mammoth teeth used to make handles for knives and other things, and polished to a fine sheen. They're out there.
Yeah.
And but they were, say this big around the steppe mammoths, but the woolies were much
great big plate of teeth.
Yeah, just a big plate of zigzag lines and ridges that were part of their molars. I don't know how many teeth they actually had, probably 5 or 6, maybe. Well,
I think
they didn't have front teeth like we do. They had back teeth.
I think four lower and 4. I don't remember.
4. That's what I was thinking about. 4 uppers and 4 lowers, not counting tusk. which
And
some of
we
these
we
things
had we had the Colombian mammoth was the one common over here.
they talked about that too.
And then we had, of course, mastodons. I don't remember if mastodons were a European deal or not, but they were probably the most common Procedian. How do you say that? Proboscidean elephant
Elephants.
that we had here in North America, or in at least the continental United States, and then Colombian mammoths. We didn't have woolies at all, except up they were in Canada and
Yeah.
Alaska.
I forget about mastodons and mammoths not being the same thing exactly.
Yeah, and the mastodons they were browsers. They had different teeth structures entirely. And they think that, like trees like honey locust with the great big thorns and Osage orange
Mm-hmm.
with the big thorns, they think the reason that was a defense mechanism against mastodons, they think.
I didn't think about that.
Because they were here a lot longer than mastodons were in North America a lot longer than mammoths were. And then we had some other weird elephant-looking critters called gomphotheres, and that had kind of like 4 tusks, and it must have been cool to have seen.
Yeah. Well, they were, and here's the
If
thing.
I could find the Wayback Machine, I'd be back there, like looking at all that stuff.
I'd like to go back there and at least see it. I don't know if I'd want to stay.
Yeah, you'd want to be able to get back here quickly.
Yeah, and bring back some artifacts.
There was so many big cats running around that you would want to get back. Teddy's relatives were very numerous and very large.
And and quite hungry, right, buddy? He says he's still hungry. He's just not real. Well, he is kind of large, but not large on that scale.
I mean, like,
yeah, they were trying to figure this out too, and I kept yelling at the TV. Well, and but they were trying to figure out how Neanderthal, if that Neanderthal could even kill, a mammoth, and I just kept yelling, well, yeah, sure they could.
Oh, absolutely.
And they kept saying, well, they're too small. They won't do this. We have a replica. You do at your house, okay? That's fascinating. Did you find it somewhere down there? Do tell. I know. I
bought my daughter one of those too.
You did what?
I bought my daughter a replica Smilodon skull. She wanted a.
Oh, that's a
saber-tooth cat.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
They're cool.
Teddy likes the mascot for the Predators because he's a big Smilodon.
So you were saying if they could kill them? I mean,
people, yeah. Well, they were trying to
people in Africa kill. I mean, little people. Whatever they call pygmies now. They used to call them pygmies. I don't know if they still do or not, but they kill African elephants with spears all the time.
Either up to recently or they still do, one or the other.
I guarantee you that a Neanderthal could have done it.
Oh, sure, I think so. I mean, especially, I think what they were thinking, the way they were thinking, was that one Neanderthal had much more primitive weapons, but I'm sure if he had a spear at all, then they can figure out how to stab a mastodon. But we don't. I don't think people think the way they did, or had to think the way they did. But another thing they did, I mean, and Neanderthals, to my knowledge, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but were kind of not large groups of people. They were usually smaller bands of family and clan, if you will. So there may not have been enough of a particular group to corral and kill mastodons, but I suspect that they gathered up sometimes in maybe areas where mastodon existed, and would have hunts where they could drive them into a pit or knock them over
Yeah.
a cliff, and just like Native Americans did here with buffalo. And
Well, and they if you run up there and job that critter in the right spot with a pointy stick with a piece of flint on the end of it, and you can wait however long it takes that animal to die. I mean, there wasn't no like it had to be a quick, clean kill. They might have followed that animal for 4 or 5 days, and then it finally succumbed to
that's
its
true too.
injuries, and then you eat it. You
Yeah,
move
we don't think that way.
Nope.
I mean,
yeah, that's
right.
not how people think anymore. But
I mean, they moved with the
that was
herd.
reality.
Yeah. If they had to follow an animal till it fell over dead, then they would. Kay said we do have it. We bought it from my dad. Let's see here. We did a year of things older than Dad one year. We located Civil War bullets, the skull, and my brother gave him dirt. So he was saying he was
great.
older than dirt. I guess that's
great.
That's kind of how I feel sometimes, Kay. I'm getting there anyway. That's a pretty good lick. Yeah, I'd like to see that. I'd like to. Well, I've seen skulls. I have seen them, but not held one in my hand. I wouldn't even mind having, and I have seen these. I wouldn't mind having a black bear skull. But
you can buy replicas of all that stuff now, Tim.
Yeah, I've seen one. Actually, I had that picture I sent you of that drawing of one.
Yeah.
I used a replica skull to draw that to go by, and so it was pretty detailed.
Yeah, you can buy it's amazing. They got those. There's a company called Skullduggery, and they make replicas. That's where I bought my daughter's Smilodon. But you can buy like extinct, like longhorn bison skulls and mammoth parts, and it's pretty cool.
It is, and I don't know. I'm going to make a statement. You can correct me if I'm wrong, and I might be on this one. To my knowledge, you can still work with and sell mastodon ivory.
You can,
as opposed to modern ivory, which you can't, which is from the elephants we have today, and which is probably a good thing. But ivory can be aged. I mean, they know if it's mastodon ivory. So if you dig up a mastodon or a woolly mammoth or something that's got, giant tushies or tusk, that can be carved up and sold. In fact, some people like to use it because it's.
Well, they find it in Alaska in particular, and then if you go north, it's I don't know how common they are, but they find mastodon or not mastodon, but mammoth ivory a lot. And
playing with the glaciers and the ice as it retreated, were they not?
Yeah, but I mean, they'll find mastodon and mammoth tusks even down here in the lower 48.
Oh yeah, they found some here in Tennessee one time.
But they're better. They're a little better preserved up in the north. Over inside, there's like a whole industry of people that make their living in that taiga country in Siberia and places like that. They that's what they do for a living. It's just look for mastodon tusks.
I've seen another video.
And I mean, that's my wedding ring. That's mammoth ivory right there.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
It's cool. in my weird way of looking at the world, that's cool.
Well, it is pretty cool. If I was to start, if I had one on or carried one, I wouldn't mind having one of those. Yeah, there was another. I watched another show here a while back about that very thing, the work that they're doing. Some of it out of Siberia with mastodon or mammoth, whichever they were digging up, DNA, and
Yeah.
that possible. They think there is a possibility that they could, using DNA, mammoth DNA or mastodon DNA, whichever, to make a new mastodon or a new woolly mammoth using the current elephant somehow. And they were excited, both excited and unsure about that. It's not been done that we know of, but they were definitely considering it. I got woodpeckers back here just eating me up this morning. It's been very busy. Now that's pretty interesting. I don't know how I feel about some of that, but it's and I'm not worried. I'm not looking at it from somebody's playing God perspective in that regard. I just I don't know if we want those species back in the world or not in our lifetimes. We may not be ready for that. It's a little bit like the Jurassic Park idea, and then the dinosaurs get loose, and then what do you do?
Yeah.
Especially if they turn out they're fertile and they can reproduce. But anyway, that was a neat show. I'll make sure I give you the title. It's something about the mystery of the mammoths or something. I something like that. I'll find it, and at least make sure you get the title. You need to go check the herd. You got.
No, I just got weird birds showing up at the feeder.
Oh, no, maybe you had horse thieves out there or something.
No, they're all good. But
Watch the crow. They'll take your pony.
if you trust their honor, you'll be okay.
If you trust
And
their
if you trust their honesty, you'll lose your long johns.
Another movie quote, folks. Bear with us. Dave, you're still in there. I mean, where you said you found that you were using like a metal detector to look for bullets and things like that? Because I mean, there's some places, and of course, some of them are preserved now, and which is good. But there's cornfields and hay fields and places all over the South, at least, and where you could find probably your weight in bullets if you really started digging. Because I've seen pictures and examples of just how thick literally the what's the right word, enfilade of bullets or back and forth between in a battle was so heavy that they literally cut trees apart and knocked the leaves off all the trees and shot through trees and just whittled them down to toothpicks. And it's unbelievable. I mean, it's just and they spilled them on the battlefield, and they so you find things like that a lot of times unfired in a pile. I've known people that dug that sort. Hi, Shauna.
She's not here.
Oh, you weren't looking up at her?
No, I'm trying to decide if I'm gonna go get a wool vest to put on because I'm cold.
Well, go get it. Don't sit there and freeze.
Because this is the west side of my house we're looking out here, and that's where the wind blows through.
It's the windward side, yes.
And I don't care what kind of walls you have in this state, you're going to get wind through your house on the west
side. Oh, that was the one thing I always noticed about when they show actual photographs or films about the Dust Bowl age was how much dirt and sand got in the houses.
In the house,
when the wind was blowing like that. It always finds a way.
Kay said she cheated.
Well, that's okay too. I mean, a lot of people cheat that way. That's not. I don't know if that's cheating or not. They there's a lot of people out there doing that. But I mean, I'll admit it. It would be kind of fun to go out and explore things like that. But it can also be an issue because we had to control um, metal detecting on our federal property because you never know when you're going to have somebody just come in and start digging something up. And I guess different lands and different agencies might do it differently, but um, it's for example, it's by federal law preservation act of, oh, I don't remember what year it came out now, or they upgraded it, but if you're on federal property, um, you're not supposed to even pick up rocks off the ground and take them home. Um, they're protected, and they did that. They do that, or they did that to help protect, natural artifacts or historical artifacts that they want. They want to be there for everybody to have an opportunity to see. And if you take it home in your pocket, then nobody else gets to see it. And he'll be back and oh, there he is. There he is now. Never mind. Shh, don't say anything.
What?
No, I was just discussing metal detecting. We had some issue with that. There you are.
There, that's better, isn't it?
Yeah, we had to basically ban metal detecting. I don't know if all federal property is that way or not, but we pretty much had to write it off because we had so many people trying to dig in places, and occasionally we had people digging for other artifacts and grave sites, and
Yeah,
never
which
know
is
what
just
people.
not right.
Right.
Yeah,
Correct.
and it's like we've talked about it. I think different federal agencies look at it different. But like finding like an arrowhead on the surface, that's like finding a lost pocket knife. It's totally out of context. It's not. It's not associated with any. The type might be associated with a time, but it's not associated with a site anymore. It's been eroded out. It's gone
True.
wherever. It's like people that hunt. There's a lot of people that hunt arrowheads in creeks now, and they're totally out of context. You can't. You might find a Clovis point laying right next to a point that's 500 years old. That same, they could be laying side by side because they've been eroded out.
Yeah,
But then when it comes to digging, that's a whole different deal in there, and
right.
there's, I think especially the federal agencies and probably all the states frown heavily with law and fines and imprisonment if you're digging stuff. If it's not on private, if it's on state land or federal land or whatever.
And we
What
have.
a person does on their own private land,
Oh
that's a whole
yeah,
different deal.
yeah, exactly. That's a whole
And
nother.
there's a lot of diggers still out there. A lot of people digging, on private lands with permission or they own it.
Yeah.
And I wish that stuff got. It's always would be better to have somebody there that was a professional that could at least document how it, came out of the ground and maybe learn some more from it. But what you do on your own land's your own deal. It ain't nobody else's business, quite frankly.
And that's pretty much how most landowners look at it. Let's face
Because
it.
this is America, by
Market,
God.
love or leave it. They yeah, we had TVA kind of had and I'm sure others do too, but we kind of had a dual responsibility because we have tracks along the rivers that had Native American, especially when you get down to south of here and you get into where some of the big Cherokee towns were along the Tennessee River, and then you go back even further to get downstream based, and you get into the Mississippian area.
Yeah.
Artifacts could be in the river banks and stuff, and so we had that to watch out for it or protect, and then we also had early pioneers and settlers and land, that kind of thing to kind of watch out for too. In some areas, we look for, if we were actually checking a site, they look for pottery shards, and that might include, somebody lived there 200 years ago.
That's my wife's phone clacking.
Oh, she didn't take it with her, huh?
She just set it down there and it started clacking like a duck.
Oh, so she's back. Oh, she's there.
She's here.
Oh, I thought she said she was gone.
No.
She just wasn't
No,
standing.
you wondered if I was like looking for Shauna, and I said, no, she's not. She wasn't here.
Okay.
I was thinking about getting my wool vest.
Okay. And
which I did.
You did.
Which I did.
Oh, that's not your stormy.
Yeah, it is. My new one.
The one that's chewed on, or a new one?
No, this is a brand new one.
Oh my! Look at
that.
Woo!
Fancy
hat. My goodness! And where do you buy such hats out there? Or do you
order them online from Stormy Cromer?
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were wearing the Boudreaux Campbell modified.
Oh, it's still here. It's still perfectly good hat. It's just got a little edge damage.
A few teeth marks in it.
Yeah, he chewed on it a bit. So
let me see where I am here. Okay, it's 11:30. I think I'll go just till noon today and then cut it off. But anyway, it was a fascinating show. I can go back to that for a minute and finish it up anyway. But they had one place. There's one place over there on one of the Channel Islands. It might have been Jersey, where there's a large stone, kind of a cavern looking thing. And as soon as I saw it, I said, "Oh, they've got a mammoth jump here or something, like they had buffalo jumps here, or on this continent, and probably other things." But they've got this straight. It's not really a cavern. I mean, it's sheer cliff walls that go up on the sides, but then there's a grassy area that comes up from the back. To me, it's the perfect site for something like that. And then I guess there was a way they could go through the rocks and come out higher up or something. I'm not sure. But they found lots of bones there over the years. And they're
at the base of the cliff?
Yeah, at the base of the cliff during the edge of that thing. And first thing I thought of was mammal or jumps. They're running them off the cliff.
Right.
And that's you and I both know that's the way that they hunted. And that's where I was telling Brenda, I said, because they were saying they weren't sure that a band of Neanderthal could run woolly mammoths off a cliff. And I kept saying they wouldn't be by themselves. They would.
All you got to do is spook one of them.
Well, that's true. If you can get them going and, turn them a little bit one way or the other, then you can run them right over the edge. And the Native Americans here did buffalo that way out west. They had jumps where they could literally run them over the edge of the cliff and then go down below and, apply a coup de grace and then eat them. I mean,
I have a jump that's about 10 miles straight south of the house here. And then there's another one that's about 15 miles kind of northwest of me that they were, probably one of them was used repeatedly over the eons, and then one of them was probably just a single event kind of deal. And then they, back where I used to live in eastern Wyoming there, Tim, those cliffs at Chugwater, they were cowboys picked up bison bones there for decades and sold them and sent wagon loads of them down to the rail line down there in Cheyenne. They would take those bison bones and put them in a wagon, haul them down there, and put them on a train, and they sold them for porcelain making, and just like thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of bison bones, and which is I always thought was kind of fascinating.
I don't think most people today, and maybe even me, can really grasp just how long they may have done that. That might have been a
Yeah,
old tradition amongst certain tribes that they
thousands of years, some of
yeah,
them.
they ended up in a certain area at a certain right time of year, and the herds were there because they were following the herds a lot by and large. And that's what I was telling Brenda, or saying last night. These Neanderthal wandered and basically followed their food because they didn't grow crops. Can't grow corn, can't grow this. And
Yeah, and I mean they lived with those animals. They knew
right.
them backwards and forwards.
And so they very well could. And if they knew, they herded
They
up.
probably killed horses and camels and all kind of other cool things along the way.
Yeah.
I mean, there were all those species there, and bison, couple of species of bison and aurochs and all kind of cool things they could have been living on. Little species. And then every now and again, you probably got a good chance at a mastodon or a mammoth, and you took it.
Think what you could do with a hide that size if you were. I mean, if you wanted a shelter, there's probably a whole shelter right there in one hide. I mean, you could cover quite a bit of. I mean, that would do.
When they found
So
they found those structures in like Siberian things where they were using tusks as basically as teepee poles. And you covered it. You drug a hide over a framework of mammoth tusks, and there you go. You got a dwelling.
Yeah, they had to use what they had, and they learned how to do it. I think that's where we fall short today. I'd like to say that most scientists can think that way, but I'm not sure they all do. And when they're trying to figure things like that out, because we don't think on that scale, and we don't think about having to do whatever it takes to eat and provide and to have food. But they were smarter than they thought. I mean, they did make tools, they did have fire, they did
cook meat.
And so I they're learning more, and we learn more and more as we go. But
well, their brain capacity was bigger than ours.
Well, yeah, I guess it was.
But and again, they've decided pretty much now through DNA evidence that they are us. They were a subspecies of us.
Yeah.
And,
well, they're pretty, like you said, they
don't find Neanderthal DNA in populations of people from Africa, for instance.
Right.
Because they didn't live down there. They were in the Middle East and Europe and Asia. And then they found those Denisovans, I think they call them, a whole nother subspecies of human, of modern human. And they only lived like up in like Eurasia and Asia, but it's just fascinating. And peoples from that part of the world have their DNA in them. Mm-hmm. We don't. I mean, if you're European, you don't. But you do have Neanderthal in you.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not. I think it's cool. Quite frankly, I think it's pretty cool.
I don't have a problem. And
That's where I got my nose. I'm perfectly okay with that.
That's perfect. That's perfectly fine. Well, they for for a long time. I got another climbing bird here. I can't tell what it is. It might have been a woodpecker. I'm not sure. It got hid behind the feeder. Um, we used to talk in terms of, you know, as the succession of man was, Neanderthal and then Homo sapien, and they didn't mix. It's like
They were in a line.
started, but it doesn't work that way. I mean, we know just through science and discoveries and whatnot, nothing really worked that way. There's always an overlap.
Mm-hmm.
Even when dinosaurs disappeared, there was an overlap of mammals, at least small mammals, and birds were starting to change over to. I mean, and some were starting to change over. Reptiles were changing over to birds and with feathers, or at least creatures with feathers. And there's always that mix. There's no definitive line usually when something starts and when something stops. So,
Well, we say the dinosaurs are gone, but every time you see a bird flying around, there you go.
dinosaur. Yep. And it took
And
a
if
while.
you don't think that birds are dinosaurs, look at the average chicken.
And study him a little bit.
Well, and then maybe one of them gets injured out there in the flock. They don't haul him off to the hospital. They turn into little velociraptors. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well that's grim. That's the grim reality of things.
Look at that one. It's got a white feather. It looks different. Let's get him. That's kind of how
Yeah.
it works. You stare deep into the eyes of a chicken and you'll see a tyrannosaur.
Write that down. I don't have my pad laying here. Where's my pad?
It's a fact, though.
Deep into the eye of a chicken. See a tyrannosaur. My wife came up with a saying yesterday. I know she's not paying attention. I'm pretty sure she's gone back to La La Land this morning. She came up with something yesterday. We were talking, and I'm not sure why she came up with it, but we were talking about things that we say or people say or have said, and she said somebody was using language so colorful that even Crayola hasn't invented those hues yet. Well, I changed it to hue. I think she just said color, but I wasn't sure if that was the right word. But I thought that was pretty good.
That's great.
I'll have to listen. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. I'm getting better at that. Now I can't find my pencil. I still like to use a good old pen.
Number two, Ticonderoga.
Well, I got some of them too. Well, I don't know if I've got Ticonderogas. I do have a few number 2 pencils, but not for some reason.
Those were good ones. Those were the good ones.
Well, you turned me on to Pentel's mechanical pencils years ago.
Oh yeah.
I'm writing that down. Oh, don't quit on me now. Must be something on that paper. It wouldn't write in that one spot. I put that. If you look deep into the eyes of a chicken, you'll see a T-Rex. Probably needs to be.
You got to stare deep into the eyes of
There,
each other.
deep. I'll make sure I give you credit for that one. I wouldn't want to perjure myself with something that could go down in history as a, that could become part of the language, the lexicon of what people say and think, or whatever that's called. I might not be right about the word, but anyhow. Well, you got anything? Well, you got anything else planned for today besides pony riding, if you can?
No, not really.
I don't know
It's
what.
always an adventure. Who knows what'll happen? Now we got my wife's coming down the stairs from upstairs, and the dogs heard it, and they think that the world's coming to an end.
You got
Somebody's attacking.
from above.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that's where the assaults come from.
Although they might be actually barking at something outside now.
I will probably spend the day. I'm going to probably try to finish putting my mess away here. I got most of my stuff sorted finally, and most of it's in boxes. Oh! I probably should save this till we go off the air. But let me look at something real quick here. I might be winning a anvil, buddy.
Winning it?
I might be at the auction.
On the auction.
Yeah, it's an auction. Last time I looked, I was still ahead in the bidding, but that doesn't mean I still am, because it ends today at some point, and usually, stuff picks up towards the end of the sale, and it's when people go nuts and really start. No, I'm still winning it. I bid. Well, I don't know if I bid on two or not. I ended up bidding on one of the rusty ones, but it was honestly, I would love to have the old mouse hole. It was probably the oldest one in the group. Judging by when I think it was made, but I'm not sure about the other one. I sent the rusty one I sent you pictures of.
Yeah, you're just gonna have to get that get somebody with a surface grinder to grind, an actual surface grinder that. Well, you don't have to be that close in tolerance, but you're just gonna have to clean that face up.
Yeah, and that's what I'll do if I get it.
Might be able to use even a big sander to clean that. It depends on how deeply it's pitted. It might not be at all. It might just be rusty.
Yeah, it may just be mostly surface rust. I'm hoping. I may be wrong, but worst case scenario is I'll have to have it refaced or at least re-ground. But it's better than what I've got right now, and which is nothing. And
yeah,
I don't know why, but it would make me happy to have it.
I have about a 18-inch section of railroad tie or railroad rail.
Well, I was thinking about doing that too,
and it in a pinch it'll work okay. Yeah. But you can't. There's no horn or anything on it. So anyway, why was this person blocked? You got bandits coming in?
What? Yeah, that's spam.
That was a
troll, whatever you want. Whatever you want to call it. Now that name looks familiar. It's probably hijacked from somebody. It was just some nonsense. A lot of times when they come in like that, you'll see like Cyrillic characters or something in the.
Yeah.
This time it really wasn't, but it didn't say anything either. So I got rid of it, and I just started getting those a couple of weeks ago. What was I getting ready to say?
Something about an anvil.
Well, yeah, we were talking about railroad tracks, and if I don't get this anvil, that's probably what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
There is what?
I've got a piece that's about 18 inches long, and it's been, again, it'll do in a pinch. It's the shape's a little. You got to deal with that kind of rounded shape, and
Well, there's actually people out there that there's a guy out online that has ground one down with actually a hand grinder, and he put a horn on one end of it
oh, cool.
and flattened the top off so it's flat. And there's people sell them on Etsy that way.
Oh,
But there's also a guy, and I don't know his website right off, but he took one and made a kind of like a wooden stand. I'll call it a stand to base to put it on, and it's made so the track will slide into it from the end, and then he can put a couple of bolts and a plate across to hold it so it don't come out. But
yeah,
it's braced in that it fits it pretty tight. And then he actually made it so he can turn it over and do it that way too if he wants the different surface. I can't remember what
right.
he had on the bottom side, but and he polished it up and ground it down flat. I mean, it looks pretty neat, and it weighs probably 25, 30 pounds at least. It depends on how big it is. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
mine's probably 50 or 60.
yeah, because
It's a big old chunk of railroad track.
I can remember times when I thought about that, and I thought, damn, I should have picked one. I can remember seeing that and chunks of that laying along the railroads. We used to wander, not me and you, but my cousins and I used to wander all the time.
Yeah.
We used to pick up spikes and chunks of steel and just all kinds of stuff along the railroad.
Back when the Rocket Boys were stealing track and selling it
For example.
so they could buy rocket making materials.
Yep. They had they grew up on the edge of the clinch. Well, it was a clinchfield line when we were there. I don't know who else used it, but mostly that railroad hauled coal in and out of Virginia down south somewhere. Maybe, who knows, maybe maybe west, southwest. Maybe it was coming down here. I don't know, for TVA or something back then, but just hundreds of cars.
Heading to the river somewhere to get on a barge and go.
And but we'd walk the railroad when of course, weren't really supposed to be walking the railroad.
Shooting
you could pick up bags of coal. People used to do that and pick up coal to burn in their furnace or their stove if they needed coal. That's how a lot of people borrowed coal that way.
Right.
Let's say some of them jumped the train, and because they'd get pretty slow when they had a full load, and especially going up any kind of grade, and you could hop on the train and fill up a few gunny sacks of coal and toss them off and come back and pick them up. Now, I never did that, but I know there were people that did.
Yeah.
In fact, Edward Abbey talked about that. His dad, and he had done it with his dad. They used to catch a train. I don't remember. See, from Kentucky, I can't remember. And there was a big grade the trains always had to climb, and they would catch the train at the bottom of the grade, and hop the train, and then they'd fill up sacks till it got near the top of the grade, and then they were supposed to get off. And one day he didn't get off in time, and passed his dad right on by, and had to ride the train all the way into town or something before he could get off. It picked up speed fast.
Yeah.
I know, Kay. And like I say, we can afford to have a whole different perspective on stuff like that. But even then, you would think they would have thought some of that through, but you never know. I mean, they just things people did weird things back then, and I don't know at what time the English or any of those people decided it was important, but they finally kind of did, I guess. But there's so much been lost over the decades from, I guess, an attitude that someone that maybe you're trying to conquer is less than your society or your culture, so therefore they don't count, and who cares about their history? And there's been a lot lost that way, I think. I suspect.
Over here, certainly.
Yeah, certainly. I don't know if you've been involved in any of this or not, but over the years, TVA had excavated a lot of this river bottom land, or done work in them, and they collected lots of bones over the years and skeletons, and we've had them wash out of the riverbank, even in my tenure, and they've been working with the nation tribes to repatriate or reinter those bones. Now the University of Tennessee has given back a lot of native bones. I think TVA had actually given their collection to UT and University of Alabama and stuff like that over the years, but I was involved a little bit in some of those reinterments. I had to do some environmental review work for a couple of them. They usually weren't real specific exactly where the sites were, because they didn't want people to know they were doing it, because you have people that go out there and dig them up, unfortunately. And most of them would be people that looked a whole lot like us and probably talk a whole lot like this. Did you ever meet anybody up here when you lived in Tennessee that talked with I always referred to it as a sing song kind of an accent. They emphasize different parts of the word, and I don't even know if I can do it. Well, boys, it goes something like this. You got to go down there to that store. I mean, they've got kind of a rhythm to how they talk.
Yeah.
I've known a couple people like that over the years. I'm not sure how far that came from, but my buddy Steve Cottrell, he used to work with a guy that talked like that, and he can imitate perfectly.
Well, just how we say Tennessee compared to the rest of the world.
Well, probably
is different. I mean, because it's not, the emphasis is not on the C, it's on the 10.
Good point.
I almost can always tell if somebody's actually from Tennessee if they say it that way versus Tennessee or however.
Good point. I still love that story you told about old brother, where art thou, and your friend who went to see it. I don't know if they're your people or mine, but I'm pretty sure they're mine.
No, she said, I'm pretty sure they're yours.
Oh, okay. Hey, Mark K, if you're still out there, I don't know if anybody else is with us, but Mark was sort of a lone hillbilly in a world of other speakers, and they used to.
I'm still that way.
Surrounded by them, and they used to kind of ask him about his people.
Appalachian Americans. Joe Gilbert came up with that term so he wouldn't offend me.
Okay.
He said you can't call them people hillbillies. You got to call, and he always used them people because he said that's offensive. But he said you can't call them hillbillies. You got to call them Appalachian Americans.
Yeah, those people are Appalachian Americans. You can't call them hillbillies. Well, I'm glad he was so thoughtful.
Yeah.
You'll have to introduce me to him when I come out there next, and we'll gang up on him. There'll be two hill jacks out there then.
So, John, are you catching any fish?
I hadn't asked him that in a few days. I wasn't sure if the weather was letting him in or not.
He was
Oh,
out.
I know what I want to ask him while you're both still here, though. John, we already. I know you and I've talked about this, but tell Mark about what you're doing with veterans, and in turn, maybe he'll tell you what he's been doing, or maybe he'll start. But
Well, we talked about that last week, didn't we? Or
you weren't here last week.
we talked about it at some point.
John, that's why I was saying John and I may have. I didn't think you were in on it. Maybe you were.
Maybe because I listened to the podcast afterwards. Maybe that's what. Maybe I heard you guys talk.
Yeah. Well, anyway, welcome back, John. Glad you stopped back in. I actually thought maybe your dad called.
Well, so Kay's a hillbilly too. Kay said she's a hillbilly too.
She's from South. She's a South Carolina hill. She's on the eastern side of the mountains. With my job, I speak to a lot of folks from New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. So to them, I'm a hillbilly. Yeah, I get that. I don't know, Kay. Do people? I don't know if you guys do this. I know people that are from what I refer to as the Tidewater area, especially Virginia. I don't know about North Carolina, South Carolina, but the people from Eastern Virginia and that Tidewater region also have a very distinct dialect or accent.
Very distinct.
And not like anybody else in this part of the world. I mean, even in Virginia, it's rare. I mean, you don't, once you get, maybe it's a geographic line drawn on maps, but once you get past that, they don't talk like that. And I went to school with a couple of guys that were from that area, and they were had that very distinct accent. Let's see, one of them was the guy that took another guy we had class with. He was from, I think he was from Brooklyn. And he was riding up to Virginia for the holidays with this guy from Daytona Beach, and he wasn't going to get to go home, and the guy from Tidewater area was, so he took him home. He rode home with him, and just spent the weekend there and learned all kinds of country stuff. Like, there's actually a difference between chickens and roosters. I mean, hens and roosters. He thought they were just chickens, and maybe thought they were all roosters. I'm not sure. And then he got, this was the funniest thing back then. They were driving up through somewhere, and they got off the interstates, I guess, and got on some back roads. And he got all excited, and he finally figured something. And he said, "Look, mailboxes on posts." and he said, "Well, that's how they do it here." And he wasn't used to seeing that either. And I don't even know if he drove. He might not have been able to drive. I had a neighbor that didn't drive, who was from New York City, and did not have a license. In fact, I think he learned to drive and got a license when he lived in Florida while he was down there, which at the time I just couldn't fathom. I mean, I thought everybody drove.
You've been driving since you were 8.
Well, it seems that way, yeah. And I know kids that were really driving, and had some kind of special exemption.
14.
14, yeah. Yep. I don't know how many states do or did that, but we did. You could do that in Tennessee.
Yeah, I think all the rural agriculture states do something like that.
Yeah, it's not uncommon to see.
You can still get permits for kids at 14 here. I assume most places that still have some ag.
Yeah, they were supposed to be limited on where they could go and do, but they were allowed to drive.
Right.
And of course, there was also that whole band of hoodlum kids that did it anyway, whether they had a permit or not.
Right.
And it wasn't too unusual for somebody to grab the tractor and drive it down to the store if they had one, and you didn't need a license to drive that. Not that it was supposed to be out on the road, but I've seen a lot of that too.
Used to ride Dusky over to the beanery and tie him up and go in and get me a meal.
I bet that got some looks. That guy, the book I just finished, the guy on the Oregon Trail, they had some fun with that too. The trail would get right in or by a town, and they might go into town to get groceries or, make a loop down in town and stop and get something to eat, and they'd tie their team up outside. That always put through some
go through the drive-through.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Their white top might have been too high.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how tall. Those are, they had I don't know if it was a Conestoga style wagon. Maybe it wasn't. I can't remember what they called it. It was a brand of wagon that had been used for a long time and for that kind of travel.
Probably a Studebaker.
No, theirs wasn't a Studebaker. I know Studebaker made them. I always thought a Conestoga had that bow in the middle more than some that were flatter.
Yeah.
Along their span. And I think, it was some kind of a sutler's wagon. And I always think of sutlers as traders and that sort of thing that carried gear, but that actually could have been a brand name too. That may be where the name came from. I don't know. Traveling salesmen may have driven sutler wagons, and for all I know, but I believe that's what they had. And it had been rebuilt by some scallywag out in Missouri who kind of cheated on them in a way. Typical age-old trip of fixing a car with Bondo and then painting over. They kind of did that on that wagon. The wheels looked really good when they bought it, and that was something they were trying to pay attention to. And they got about halfway across, and a couple of the wheels just shattered, and they looked at them, and they were rotten through and through. They'd just been painted over.
Oh, yeah.
But apparently that happened even back in pioneer days, too. So,
yeah.
And then there was something else I found fascinating. Did John ever talk about fishing? John, Mark asked if you've done any fishing lately. He might have already stepped out. His dad might have called now. This guy was saying that when a lot of travelers, once they reached a certain point in, a couple of things happen. One, if they reached the Snake or reached one of the rivers over there, sometimes they would take their wagons apart basically and build a flat bottom and try to.
Yep.
And there were people that built an industry of having ferries that ferried people down. And eventually that became a steam operation, I guess, for a while. But there was a market for the wagons. They could not for being a wagon, they sold the lumber out of the wagons at a premium price out there, because when they got to Oregon, there were no sawmills or anything set up yet. So they would sell their lumber to people that were building, and the lumber from wagons ended up in all kinds of places out there at some point in time. And there's still things, I guess, sold today that are listed as original, authentic wagon wood. John, you can tell me, did we talk with Mark about your veteran fishing project, or did you and I just talk about that? He's not sure if we did either. I can't remember. I thought you and I had, but he might have been involved. You say you did a little clamming. Did you get enough for a meal? I bypassed my noon. I was gonna hop off at noon, so I'll hurry hop off at 12:30. Make it a nice round number. I only have 2 days of Olympics left, and then I can kind of get back to normal till hockey playoff season starts anyway. Okay, what's the news? What's
What news?
I thought maybe you had news. You got up and
Oh,
left.
no, we were missing Boudreaux Campbell.
Oh no! Did you find him?
and my wife's getting ready to go to town, and
Ah,
we lock them up in the house when a vehicle's leaving, so nobody gets bull squished.
good idea. Do they
So
do they chase after your cars, trucks, whatever?
the pups do, yeah. So we lock them up, and whoever's left at the house gets to remember to unlock them.
That would be you.
In this particular instance, it would be me.
He's John said he'd not fishing, but he'd been done a little clamming.
Cool. I always wanted to do that, something like that, or get oysters because I
Yeah.
love oysters in every form.
I've eaten them raw, but I used
Me,
to love them fried. That's how I
I,
first had them.
I
A
love them
little
raw,
away.
fried, however. Put them in a stew.
Yeah. I tell you what, I was working in Florida one year, and we did one of the guys, or we did a little fishing off the back porch. I honestly didn't do a lot of fishing down there because at night the mosquitoes were so bad around the house that I couldn't hardly stand to be out there. Plus, it was hotter than 40 hells too, even at night. And but after you'd been out in that heat all day long, I just wanted to get out of the heat or out of the sun. But anyway, I never would have believed it. I didn't think there was a serious bone in this kid's body. I mean, he just didn't seem like it, but he actually cooked pretty well. And he had a recipe from his mom to make a fish stew or fish, not a chowder, but he called it something else. I can't think. Anyway, I was skeptical to be honest. He made it, and God, was that good. And he had a couple different fish he'd caught. He had a drum, a sea trout, they call them down there,
Yeah.
which is just another version of a drum. They got little tushies.
Yeah. I
And
love catching them.
so I
They're
think they may call them spotted sea trout.
speckled sea
Yeah,
trout.
yeah, but they're really not a trout at all. Which I'm sure
And
knew.
they've got, yeah, they call them, some people call them saber-tooth trout because they
That
got
works.
those.
They've definitely got the teeth for it. And then I think he caught a couple of redfish in the canal behind the house.
Which is another drum,
Yeah.
which is also in that same branch of fishes. So
Anyway, he caught enough that he made a really good soup or stew out of it. It was quite delicious. Delicious. It was tomato based, so I don't know. I can't remember what he called it, but it was good. It was really good. I haven't had clams in ages. Last time I had clams, John was probably in Florida and probably at the Cape May cafe at Disney World. Or not cafe, but at the buffet when they had it. And I can't remember what is the name. That's Cape May something. They had a seafood buffet, if you will, and they always had a lot of fish, and they usually had a big bucket full of fresh clams or mussels or something like that at one end, and they were usually pretty good. And dip them in a little butter. We've had another emergency. I think I heard Mark's name called. Oh, do you, John? I didn't realize. I didn't realize that. I knew there was such a place. I don't know if there's more than one or not, but okay. I don't know about salmon stew. Um, yes, I believe it's probably a thing, but I've never made it, so I'm not sure what would be in it. Have you ever made a salmon stew, Mark? Um,
I live in the land of salmon, various salmonids, and I don't really like it. That's the one kind of fish that I really don't like. I love all the others that I've ever had, and I'll eat trout, but I would prefer to be eating a bass or something. But
Well, it is different. I mean, they're fattier for one thing, or they tend to be.
they're pretty good for you too.
Yeah, they are. They are. I should eat more. I haven't. We don't eat much
But
fish. Should.
I've never made fish. I'm not opposed to the idea. I've just never made fish in a stew form ever that I can remember.
No, like
I
I said,
usually just fire up the grill and grill them outside,
yeah.
or pan fry them, depending on what species. But
Have you ever? Have you ever eat? Did you ever eat any? I'm going to guess you have not, but I don't know this for a fact. Um, my buddy Steve again, when he was a kid or younger, he used to talk about. Now get back to that, Kay. Hold that thought. Uh, when he was younger, he used to talk about going trout fishing up in the mountains or in the areas where there were brookies still.
uh-huh.
But they were usually pretty small,
Yeah.
and they would, I guess, gut them, but then they would fry the whole fish.
And eat it like a stick.
Yeah, eat the fins and everything. He said
Yeah,
the fins are
we eat them all the time out here, the little ones like that. Because when you cook them down, I mean, the bones are just nothing. They're, if they've been, especially if you just like grill it over a fire or something,
yeah,
those bones just become almost inconsequential. You don't really hit them. But we used to do that with creek chubs too.
I don't think I've ever eaten a creek chub.
Up there at Buffalo Mountain, we used to catch brookies up there, but the creek chubs you would catch were bigger, and we would eat them too. And I thought they were great. But I kind of like a white fleshed fish anyway.
Well, I probably do too. Tend to too. Well, okay, I just looked it up here. That you brought it up.
Salmon stew.
I was surprised to hear that Brazil has a famous salmon stew, but I guess they do have that. Salmon and Brazil just doesn't seem to go together to me, but apparently they do. But it's not. This is not saying if it was a South Carolina thing or not. It could be, or they may have a version of it that's unique to down there. But right now, I'm not seeing that. I should probably. But there's the salmon stew. I mean, salmon to me are a lot more of a cold water fish. I wouldn't think they'd be down there. That doesn't mean they can't buy it and cook it, but.
Well, they have a huge salmon fishery particularly on the Pacific side in southern South America, down along Chile.
Well, that makes sense. That's cold water.
But not north of there that I'm aware of. And on the east, on the Atlantic side, I don't know. They must be importing them or they're using some different fish and calling it a salmon.
Well, that's possible too. John said they have a saltwater topwater pop. Oh, creek chub.
Oh, the creek chub. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen those actually.
So, John, are you fly fishing when you're using these poppers, or is this like on a surf rod or a big spinning reel or something?
And while he's thinking about that, Kay, I just saw a recipe that had that sounded kind of like that same recipe. I know it had potatoes and onions in it. I saw that. Anything that's got potatoes in it can't be all bad.
So it sounds like a chowder almost.
Almost. And here's the one that says southern. Here's the one that says it's a southern food recipe. And I'm not going to watch that. That's a video. I just thought it'd show me the recipe. It
sounds good.
It's good to eat on a cold and dreary day.
Well, that region down there, that coastal North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia country have all kind of cool dishes.
She says the broth isn't as thick as chowder, and that's a good point. Most chowder is pretty thick. Of course, I mean, when I think of a stew, generally stews are thicker than soups to me, but I know there is a fine line there somewhere that from what is called stew and what's soup, I guess.
Well, we're fixing to have tomatoes and home canned tomatoes and corn with antelope meat mixed in it here in a little while. So
How's that fixed?
I got antelope meat that I canned, and I've got tomatoes and corn that I canned together, and I dump them in a pot and heat it up and eat it.
It's that simple. It's the
It's a,
antelope. When you can antelope, it's cooked, isn't it?
well, it cooks in the canner in the pressure cooker.
Okay, when you're canning it. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Anybody else in here still in here ever canned meat? Because I've never done that. But people up here, some people did it. We never did that. Mom never canned any meat that I'm aware of. I know there's canned sauce. People used to can sausage up here sometimes. And I knew a guy that did that for a while. And I may have had canned sausage made that way. But I don't remember it for sure. A lot of times they'd put it in like a cheesecloth sack and hang it up and smoke it or cure it.
Well, and I never canned meat once till I moved to Wyoming. And it's a pretty common method of preserving meat out here.
Well, it makes sense. I've just never had it.
You know, where we grew up, not everybody, but people still had smokehouses, and you'd hung your meat out there in the smokehouse.
Well, yeah.
And I've got a smokehouse here in my backyard that it hasn't been used in probably 100 years, but I could smoke meat here if I wanted to, but I either make jerky out of it or can it now if I want to say, or just put it in the freezer like normal. But yeah, actually, I can just stick it outside and it's frozen. So,
but where would you get enough good wood to smoke meat out there? I mean, I've already got an order on my list for if I come out there, I need to bring some hickory and hardwood.
Yes, you do.
John says he was plugging with a spinning reel.
That's what I saw, and he's using a surf fly rod too. Yeah, I bought a 9-weight rod when I went to Texas just for fly fishing for redfish and flounder and things like that. And I had more fun than people ought to be allowed to have.
Were you catching redfish and stuff on it?
Redfish and speckled sea trout and flounder and
flounder too.
Ladyfish, a bunch of species. Some things that I didn't know what the heck it was, and I was kind of afraid to touch it.
And that's saying something. Let me tell you,
because you just never know what kind of poisons they've got.
Well, that's true. If Mark won't touch it, it's pretty serious. Although I found that he does have a limit. I tried to get him to grab a gar by the bill one day, by the nose the snout one day, and he said, "No, they got touches." Because they do have a mouthful of razor sharp little needles
that are sticking out at all angles.
Well, I wasn't really thinking about that when I said it. I just
reach over there and grab him by the snoot. That's what you said.
And I think you said, "Hell no, it's full of touches," or something to that effect.
I grabbed turtles though like that.
Yeah, you sure did.
About took us in.
Yes, it sure did. Kay said her grandmother used canned sausage. Did she can it, Kay? Do you remember? She said her mother and her aunt tried it though, and it didn't turn out so well. Like I said, I've never tried it. I don't remember us ever doing canned meat. I honestly, I would like to I guess I'd like to try that sometime. I don't know. I'm
See,
remiss. We don't can a lot of stuff anymore. When we were first married, we'd go up to mom's or another friends up there in Jonesboro, and get canned green beans and corn, and mom used to can some tomatoes and tomato juice. I mean, she had two different things. Some she would can them basically whole, and then the other time she had this hand grinder
yeah, you like
that
smash it
she
down and make
yeah
juice out of it.
and do it that way.
Well, and that's what I did with this corn and tomatoes. My people always made canned corn and tomatoes,
Yeah,
mixed it together, you know, and I loved it growing up, and so
mom, I've had that
I
too.
canned a bunch of that, and because we can't get fresh vegetables very often here.
Yeah,
So we get vegetables from Utah and we buy them in the bulk, and then we got to do something with them.
right.
And we started canning again because we just didn't have enough freezer space. You know, you'd have a deer or an elk in the freezer or a beef or whatever, and
No room for vegetables.
no room for a bunch of extra food. And we got 3 freezers, but it got to the point where it's like we need to start putting some of this up in some different form. And I was like, well, heck, I'm going to try doing that with meat too, then, especially antelope and deer meat. And you just cube it up about 3/4 inch cubes and fill a jar with it up to about an inch of the lid, like most things. Put your lids on it and cook it in a pressure cooker and put it away. And it lasts forever. If
I
it seals, it's good.
yeah,
If the jar seals, and I've knock on wood, I've been real successful with that. And we have antelope. We have antelope meat from 2 years ago. We're still eating on that, and it's perfect. It's just like it. You just put it in there. So
yeah. That's the neat thing about doing it that way. They tend to retain that. I mean, green beans. My mom's green beans used to retain a lot fresher flavor.
yeah, all for years.
Yeah. Kay said her grandmother canned it herself. I have jars of stuff my grandmother canned it. It's so pretty in the jar. She used a
Half gallons.
half
Wow.
gallon jars. Wow, that's a big jar. I'm not sure. Well, I've seen them. We always did quart jars, and a few things Mom might even have used pint jars for, but I don't remember what. Their biggest thing was always green beans, and then they did do corn and tomatoes too. But I just wasn't a big tomato eater. But I probably had it in soup or something. Um, but Mom got to where we didn't usually have a freezer full of meat, so she got to where she would can't for a while. She got to where she was putting her corn in the freezer and making freezer corn, as she called it, as opposed to just canning it. And because I don't know if it was easier or what, but and so you ended up with basically a cream corn, homemade cream corn, which I loved. And I just didn't realize that's what people would call it, cream corn. I just called it corn. And but then they figured out a way to blanch it on the cob and freeze it, and it was still pretty good. A lot of corn didn't freeze good on the cob, or I didn't think it did. And I think but she used to can it too. Um, but she canned a lot of green beans, and they used to can some okra from time to time. But
Yeah.
you remember what?
Slick, slimy, boiled okra.
No,
Yeah.
she fried it.
I love it.
We never ate it boiled. We always fried it.
I love it fried, and I hate it boiled.
I have a friend of mine that him and his kids both the kids and him just love boiled okra. They just
Yeah.
I said,
That's
how the
gross.
hell do you eat this stuff? But don't want to insult anybody that likes boiled okra. She had a big family and needed bigger jars. Well, that makes perfect sense.
There you go.
Because it takes the same, I believe they take pretty much the same lid. So you'd only have to buy half as many. If you had to use 2 quart jars, that's 2 lids. So if you had the other size jars, you cut the lids down by half. You just
I
have to
just
have
worry
the
about the
jar.
size of the pressure cooker.
He said fried okra, yes. Boiled, no. I agree. Unless it's in a jumbo or gumbo or something, then I can eat it. But I'm not a boiled okra guy. And what was I saying? Well, we was talking about canned food. Now I can't remember where I went.
You went to
Oh,
corn.
I know what I was going to ask you. Do you remember when I believe it was Telford, the old Telford schoolhouse? They converted part of that, or it might have been the gym or the old probably the old kitchen cafeteria down there, I guess. And they set it up so people could come down there and rent space basically for a day and can stuff in the summer, beans and stuff. My mom and
Really?
my mom and her best friend Charlotte got to where they would go down there. They had several big pots to boil stuff in and
Yeah.
pressure cookers and some big ones. And they would take, that might not be true. They may have furnished that down there actually, because they had great big, like industrial size pots or something, but they would go down there and use that kitchen, and other people did too. $10 a day or something. You could go down there and can to your heart's content, and they'd bring, several dozen jars of fresh green beans home that they did down there at the school.
At Telford.
I believe it was the old Telford schoolhouse. Yeah.
So that reminds me of something I was going to ask you about.
Okay.
So I remember when I was in high school, there was commercials running on there was a country station out of Kingsport or maybe maybe Johnson City, I don't know, but anyway, they kept running these commercials, and they were kind of a spoof commercial, and it was about Heine Winery, and they were in Telford, Tennessee. And there was three brothers, and it was Big, Red, and Thor Heine. It was the Heine Winery. Anyway, I don't know.
I remember that.
You said Telford, and my mind went right to that.
I remember that. Big Red and Thor.
Big Red and Thor Heine. And they had commercials on for decades. Seemed like
hillbilly humor there.
Yeah, hillbilly humor.
Okay. Or John, I had some fried okra from somewhere that not too long ago too, but I can't remember where we were at when I had it. It was probably someplace like a Long John Silver's or something. That's usually where I get it these days if I go buy one.
God, you guys are making me hungry.
Well,
yeah, I never eat when I'm coming on your show, and then I'm like starving to death by the time the show's over. And when we're talking about fried okra and oysters,
canning antelope and you're the only person that I've ever eaten antelope with, and I remember it being good. And I used to hear people say they didn't like it because it was too sagey.
Well, what they don't like is that the fact that they shoot a buck antelope at 8 o'clock in the morning, and their buddies also got a tag.
So they're
waiting.
They
throw that one in the bed of the truck, and it's 75 degrees outside, and they drive around in the dirt and the crap all day with that antelope gutted in the bed of the truck, and they didn't put it in a cooler or nothing, and then they're like, "Oh, it tastes awful," and they're idiots. I mean,
yeah.
it's
I don't know
if I can say idiot on this show or not, but they're idiots.
Well, you did.
If you do that with a beef cow, it tastes like that too.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem with most people that say they didn't like deer. I knew that was the same thing. It was the deer that cousin Johnny killed and then rode around all day with it on the hood of his Jeep because he didn't know it all. So it laid there in the hot sun and the hot Jeep hood and
right and spoiled the thing. Yeah.
Either that or they bust the bladder off and get it all over the meat, or scent glands. Or
my wife loves it, and I mean, I love it too, but even my wife loves antelope when it's taken care of properly.
That's good. That's
And
nice.
we'll take a doe, like, we'll get some doe tags and take a doe's hind quarter and cook it like a ham just like a hog ham. And boy, golly, are those good.
Over the fire or over the grill or
Over
just
the grill, yeah, they are good. And we'll prepare it just like put lots of honeys and things like that on it, and pineapple, and boy, is it good.
Now you're making.
Now I'm really hungry.
Open up a jar of that
I've
antelope.
literally got to my stomach's growling stage.
Well, you're gonna have antelope sometime today, you said. So you'll get to satiate that hunger a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, I think I'm gonna sign off. I've already passed 2 self-imposed deadlines or self-suggested deadlines, which I hardly ever hit. I realize that, but I am going to go. Thank you, Mark, for coming on again this morning and spending time with us and keeping me on track somewhat and all that kind of good stuff. I'm slowly but surely getting. I got 92 subscribers now, so I'm slowly but surely inching my way towards 100, and maybe someday I'll get 100. So tell your friends and family, hit that like button, and all that good stuff. And who knows what might happen. I've thought about before, and I'm thinking about it again, trying to do a short show or a little show at night. Take a night of the week and just do a little bit of something. And I was actually going to do it by going places like the motorcycle shop or what they call the tea room down there where the bike guys hang out, the old guys like me and the guys that like old motorcycles and stuff. But I hadn't got that done yet. I'm still working on that. It might have to be a vlog and a taped or pre-recorded thing. I don't know. And I don't know. I'll just have to figure that out. I'm still working on it. But I want to keep doing my Saturday morning show because I like sitting here talking to people on Saturday morning. And, I may not draw the biggest crowd in the world, but then again, I probably don't have the most exciting topics to talk about, but I enjoy it. And most everybody that's here seems to. So
We've talked about mammoths and everything today, dude.
yeah,
It's very exciting.
Just think what people could learn if they tuned in. I taught a whole group of people in
Say, where'd them 2 hillbillies come from?
and how in the hell did they get so educated?
Or that's the dumbest thing I ever heard a person say.
Educated?
No, that's what they think. Anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Or, they're probably out there saying, that can't be true. These 2 guys can't know that.
They're idiots. I'm signing off. Love you, brother.
Hey, well, I wanted to tell you something. Don't go yet. I'm going to sign you off, but don't go yet.
Oh, daggone it. I'm starving.
Well, go get you something to eat and come back.
Can I call you on the telephone?
Yeah, I'll have to. Yeah, I wasn't going to show you anything. I may think a minute and then. But yeah, if you want to, or I can call you if I remember. But
okay.
Anyway, thanks for being here. Love you. See you later.
Later on, brother.
Bye. And that's going to sign off, guys. Thanks for being here. Who's left? A couple of people left, maybe Kay and John. Thanks for hanging around. John, thanks for coming back. And I really appreciate it. I know Mark does too when he's here. And I appreciate him being here. He does give me a lot more things to talk about. And he's pretty darn smart. He knows a lot of stuff I wish I knew, and a lot of stuff I think I know about. And some of it he's done more of than I have because he had a little bit more of a hands-on position than I did at one time. Best you ever had was at the Air Force Base. That's interesting, John. I I, I don't know if I ate it. I ate at a Naval Air Station once or twice when I was traveling with Boy Scouts. I don't know if we ever ate it. I don't know if we ever ate at an Air Force Base. Maybe we did. What's the one in? Oh shoot, the Fort Worth area. Actually, my uncle was stationed there when, I was probably about the time I was born. He was in the Air Force, but I don't remember. I can't remember the name of it. Yeah, I figured it was fried okra, John. Well, I'm glad they fed you well. I have to say, if they can fix fried okra right and it was good, and you think it was best you've ever had, then thumbs up to that Army or that Air Force cook. Good for them. Good for you. Kay, we got cookouts around here too, and I've meant to go in there and just see what they've got or drive through or whatever they have. I can't remember if it's a sit down place or not. Some of them may be, and check them out, but I haven't done that yet. Didn't realize they had okra. That might change things. I do like some okra now. We used to go to a restaurant in Nashville called Po' Boys, a variation of Poor Boys, and it was owned back then by the guy. They used to call him Whispering something. He had a real soft, velvety kind of voice. He was a singer. Bill Anderson, maybe, or something Anderson. Anyway, he owned it with some other people, Nashville people, and they had them down that part of the country. I don't know if they got out very far, but they were a little bit like the Cracker Barrel, but I think just a tiny bit better. They had the best country fried steak I think I've ever had. And they also had a red bean and rice dish that was cheap and delicious. And they had great oak. Yes, Whispering Bill Anderson, Kay, thank you. And they had really good fried okra in that place. I think they're gone. I think they're out of business. I think they got bought out. Maybe is Bill still? I don't know. Is Bill still alive, Kay? Do you know? Because they may all be dead now. I can't remember who all was involved in that deal. But country singers at that time didn't all have a great reputation for, making a business last. If you lived in Nashville, you kind of saw some of them come and go. Oh, I forgot to show my shirt today. I'm wearing a Christmas present shirt. My buddy Phil brought me one back from the last trip he made on the Blue Ridge Parkway. Blue Ridge Parkway is still one of my, if not my favorite road to drive or ride, especially ride on a motorcycle. It's just the most relaxing, truly enjoyable thing just for a nice ride that I believe I've ever had. You just don't have to worry about a lot of traffic. You don't have to worry about semi trucks or dump trucks or anything like that. You got to drive slower than you're supposed to drive slower than you would necessarily want to, because the road is nice and wide and smooth and big long turns, so it's not real complicated or technical, but the speed limit's low because it's a national park. And Kay, I'd forgotten that he was from down there. That's right. I do remember that now. So anyway, I'm going to finish up here. I was getting ready to do that, and I keep chasing squirrels, and I'm going to stop so you guys can go about your business and get on with other things. And I am probably going to go sit down and watch a few things from the Olympics if there's anything left on today. The Olympics will end this weekend, and I guess I'll get back on a semi-regular schedule. I watch the winter games more than the summer. I do watch some summer games, but it only comes around every 4 years, and I really enjoy them, especially the winter. Don't like all the controversy that's going on right now. Again, I don't know if we're ever going to get away from all that drug issues. I just don't know, and I won't go off on a rant about who it was and how trustworthy they are, or are not. But You know, it seems to be the same people doing it most of the time. Anyway, I won't go there. Folks, I appreciate Kay. Really glad you made it in. Thanks for hanging around. John, thanks for coming back. Always enjoy having you in the chat. We'll talk again soon, buddy. And I'll catch up with you later. So if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, I'll be back again next Saturday. I hope to see you there. Bye-bye, everybody.